Hello and welcome back to another happy hour. I am one of your hosts, Ryan Fring, creative director here at Backflip. And joining me today, as always, we've got John Shoemaker. Let's transition to you real quick. There you go. Say, hey, John. We're both in our office. I love your light. You got some purple light there. Yeah, we have the power. Cool. So we're super excited because today, let me over. This will be a good reveal because you're leaning down. Today we have joining us our good pal, Ben Heckendorn. Hey, Ben.
Hi, guys. How's it going?
Good. How are you, man?
I'm still...
Yeah, I love it. I love your introduction, too, because you were leaning down. What are you up to right now? Hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and let's start off. We'll learn a little bit more about you in just a second, but this is a happy hour, so I do want to share what we're drinking, alcoholic or not. Uh, I do, because we like to advertise Carbon 4. I don't have any Carbon 4 alcohol, but I do have this wonderful scotch, which I just bought because it had a cool label. This is Game of Thrones House Stark, a single malt Highland Scotch whiskey. So it's a pretty legit Scotch with some fun branding. I've got that, and I've got some of this good Clarbrun to pass the time. So what are you guys drinking? Go. Yeah, that's okay. Good thing I've been talking. There you go. Now you have audio. So this is exactly what happened last week, but good thing I fixed it. So what do you got? What do you guys got?
Well, even though I'm super drunk Irish man, I only drink during the day on fishing trips, so Diet Pepsi.
We're not fishing
Sorry,
quite yet.
there's no rum in it either.
Nice.
You don't put the rum in from the bottom of the syringe or something?
I'll sneak the rum in. Why's the rum gone?
I've got Lakefront River West Stein.
That sounds good.
Is Stein the format? Or the type?
I don't know.
Isn't a Stein like a glass? I don't know.
It's a lager.
So we didn't have Ben, you talking just briefly about what you're doing. We had that great intro of you leaning up though. What are you up to right now? What are you working on?
Myself?
Yeah. That part before we didn't hear because we didn't have audio.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so somebody wants left-handed Xbox 360 controllers. So they actually want 2 of them. So I'm trying to finish this up today before the weekend. Yeah, so I don't usually do last gen stuff, but I figured this guy needed help. So yeah, so I'm just basically wiring everything up.
Nice.
This one's a special Halo edition. I mean, I don't really give a crap. He just mailed me the controllers. It's actually kind of hard to find game controllers. Like game controllers, systems, Nintendo Switches, all that stuff is like way back ordered.
I feel like even before COVID, it was hard to find like 360 controllers and things like that. We were trying to find some GarageBand pieces and an extra controller, and we couldn't find it at Pre-Played. Was trying to look online. Some places had it for silly
You mean
costs.
Rock Band?
Sorry, Rock Band, yeah.
GarageBand, isn't that an Apple program?
A Mac program, yeah. So tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do. You know, we obviously have known each other for many, many years, but our viewers might not be familiar.
Oh, okay, sure. Just a second. I got to make sure this feels like it's together. Well, I'm just a simple man. Long ago, I used to be a graphic artist, actually, like back in the '90s, right?
Mm.
And then in like year 2000, I wanted to do a project. I wanted to do something fun because I used to be like into making my independent films, but as you guys do, but I kind of needed a break. So I found this old Atari 2600, and I'm like, oh, I bet I could make this into a portable. That was just some fun project I wanted to do, right? And so I did that. This is like, yeah, this is over 20 years ago now. Jeez. And whatever. But then I made a GeoCities website about it, of course. Again, this is 2000. Anyway, then people started visiting the website, and I started getting all this email, and they're like, "Oh man, that's so cool! Will you build me one? Will you build me one? Can I buy one? Blah blah blah." And I'm like, I was like just dumbfounded how many people cared about this old, because this is back before, you know, like classic retro gaming was hot, you know. Actually, like back then, Atari, that was hot because there's like the nostalgia cycle. I don't know if you've talked about this before, Ryan, but basically it's whatever 30-year-olds had when they were 10, or whatever 50-year-olds had when they were 30 or single, right? So in the year 2000, a bunch of 30-year-olds who were born in like 1970, they wanted what they had when they were 10, which was Atari in like 1980, right?
Sure.
So it was this really hot thing. So I had all these people asking me to build this thing for them. So I started building them like as a side job thing. I was still a graphic artist. But yeah, I had like so many orders for it. And then also, I think in 2004, I was offered a book deal with Wiley Publishing, writing a book about modding and stuff. And so I did that. And that actually was a lot of...
At that point, how much modding had you done?
By 2004?
Yeah, because you've done the Atari. When did you do the original Xbox mod? Because I believe that's when I saw you on like G4 TV or something.
Yeah,
around there.
Right. So in 2004, I'd never done anything with the original Xbox, and the Xbox 360 hadn't come out yet. So back then, it was mostly like 8-bit and 16-bit consoles. Like the book, it covers what was it? Atari, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and I think PlayStation 1. But then, yeah, a few years later, a friend of mine wanted me to build an Xbox 360 laptop as like a promotional item. And so I did that, and then I found like a whole new set of fans, I guess.
Was that the item that got you onto what, maybe it was X-Play?
You know, I can't remember. I remember, I think I was on those shows before I actually built that, actually. Because actually, back in the 2000s, I was actually on, there was quite a few times that I was, I think, with G4, I went to MTV once or twice. And yeah, that was back when like TV was still somewhat relevant.
That's fun. And MTV had, more creative, crafty stuff.
Yeah, I remember MTV definitely gave me the best hotel. I'll still remember that. I think I saw Flavor Flav in the lobby when I was, and this was in Los Angeles, of course. Yeah, it was this really short dude with something hanging around his neck and a camera crew. So that's probably fun. Flavor Flav.
Yeah. And you're here in Madison, so that was the other thing that many years ago, I don't know, 5 years ago, when we first heard about the project of helping you guys produce your YouTube show, which maybe you can bring us up to speed on that in a second, but I was amazed. I was like, wait, that dude's here? He's been here like the whole time?
Well, I mean, at any given point in time, I have to be somewhere, right?
That's true. Quantum mechanics right there.
Oh, yeah. What did they say? No matter where you are, there you are, or whatever that saying is.
Yeah, a wizard is never late. He arrives precisely when he intends to.
The dad in the Brady Bunch movie says, "A wise man once said, wherever you go, there you are."
There you are.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Oh,
Very
hold on a
cool.
second.
Yeah.
Okay. You get the battery terminals back. You know where I get noticed the most in real life that besides conventions? It's a toss up. It's always Menards or Olive Garden.
Is it
Why?
because you spend a lot of time at Menards or Olive Garden?
Well, Menards maybe because I was doing a lot of house projects during lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but Olive Garden, I don't go there that often.
It must just be, our people go to those places. So
Well, I was at Olive Garden. We were waiting outside. This was in Madison in June, so it was open, but the limited capacity.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I had just found one of my calculators, which I think it was actually I brought. Yeah, it was this one. It was the TI-86. No, wait, no, I hadn't found that one. No, wait, I had found it. So I found the TI-86 at a Goodwill.
Nice.
So I was going Goodwill hunting for.
Aww.
I was going Goodwill hunting for calculators, right? And so I had this. I was playing with it in line, and then this kid walks up, and I probably gave myself away because I was playing with a calculator in line for Olive Garden. And he's like, "Are you Ben Heckendorn?" And there's this thing that you notice, like, I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like the sideways glance, right? It's like if you're talking to somebody and if you see someone that recognizes you, they always have the same expression. Let me see if I can replicate it. It's like right? And so I can kind of tell out of my periphery. So I was talking to my friend and I could see it from a peripheral vision. Oh, this person knows who I am. So I was expecting them to walk over.
Yeah, there's just awe in their eyes.
Yeah, and then the thing that was kind of weird about that one was like his girlfriend didn't give a damn, obviously, and she just wanted to eat. So and it's her birthday. So she goes inside and he's standing outside still talking to me. And so I had to do this really delicate balancing act of like, I don't want him to think that I'm blowing him off like, like some jerk, like Billy Crystal or something. But at the same time, I don't think he realizes how pissed his girlfriend probably is.
Yeah.
And he's standing outside. So I was like, well, hey, I think you're, because I wasn't trying to get rid of him because I had nothing better to do standing in line, right? But I was like, hey, you're, better, your girlfriend probably is waiting for you. So,
well,
I don't know. He might have thought I was a little bit of a jerk, but I was trying to, make sure he got laid that night.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure just, being able to reach out to a celebrity despite the girlfriend not knowing made his day. And I titled this, you probably would be like, why'd you title it that way? But I titled this YouTube Fame and Finding Joy. Because I feel like, as I've known you, those are two things in your story. But let's get up to the YouTube stuff, which we've alluded to, like what you started modding, you had a GeoCities website, you got invited out to be on TV. But when did you start creating content and how did that get you to YouTube?
Oh, hold on a second.
Hold on.
R3, R bumper.
This is great. This is also some of my favorite. Is it working?
Appears to be. I mean, obviously I haven't hooked up the lower analog, but I can still test the other stuff.
This is one of my favorite skills that you have is your ability to multitask. There's apparently no true multitasking, but because of you having to have a show and do stuff while talking and producing in your mind, I feel like you've gotten really good at that switching.
Producing in your mind?
Producing the content, like, oh, I have to show this now and I have to stop, and just always thinking about that for the program.
Oh, thanks.
I have zero amount of that ability. My wife frequently teases me because when we're in the kitchen doing chores in the evening, if I start talking to her, she'll look over at me and be like, "What are you doing?" Because I'm just leaned against the counter. I've completely stopped all activity because once the communication centers fire up, my motor skills stop.
I do stuff like that too. Like I'll like go out to the garage or upstairs, and then I'll get there and I'll be like, "Why did I come here?" So Yeah, and I also have really bad short-term memory.
That's just our ADHD brain. But yeah, let's get back to that. What when
Yeah,
did
you
you
want to
start
talk
creating
about
content? Yeah, and then
the
revision
YouTube channel,
3,
right?
and I almost said revision 4. Revision 3 and then YouTube.
Now it's revision 0.
Revision doesn't exist.
Yeah, go ahead. What questions do you have?
Well, so you started modding and you created the website, but when did you start, were you doing video at the same time of the modding? And when did you get picked up, and then how did that work?
Uh, I mean, well, that of course that was before YouTube existed. And as I mentioned, I was into like independent film, so I had camera, I had cameras, and I knew how to edit and all that. Um, I think I did have some YouTube. I did have a personal YouTube page or YouTube channel, which still exists, by the way. I renamed it Ben Heck Hacks,
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually got a decent number of subscribers. I think we have 120,000 now.
Yeah.
Um,
And you're still doing
yeah,
content,
yeah, but only when I feel like it. Unlike the show,
which is key. Yeah.
yeah, because I got really burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so yeah, I would do like I would just take like crappy like digital camera videos of stuff and like, oh hey, I made this laptop or whatever. But like looking back now, like some of those videos I made like in 2008 or 2009, like there's one like with the Xbox laptop. I think it has like 900,000 views, which is actually pretty good. Um, so, but that was before we started doing the Ben Heck show, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So I had stuff on YouTube, but it was very off the cuff. I had like documented like that Bill Paxton pinball machine that I made, and there was like zero production value, which I mean, even less than I do now. I mean, I didn't even edit. It was just like
Yeah.
just the files. I threw them online.
But I mean, that
But then
obviously
in
speaks
2010, we
to,
started doing the show.
I was going to say that speaks to your personality and the content that you were creating, which people just really, really resonated with. Um,
Yeah, I've noticed that now, like looking at the comments on the videos I've made, like people are like, "Oh, we like this better than Element 14 because it's just you building stuff like nothing else."
yeah.
And I think people like because the videos are longer. Because we always got that feedback, especially from Revision 3. They're like, you have to release something every week, and it needs to be no longer than 20 minutes. And a lot of times you can't really show a project in 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that idea of producing content for content's sake versus creating content that follows kind of your story and your journey. I think that's maybe the big
Right.
difference.
I mean, at the risk of sounding like I'm glib, but I see people on YouTube, and I mean, I watch a lot of those like, dumb drama channels, but they're always like, "Oh, our content's like, you're not making content, you're reading news stories into a webcam. Give me a break."
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think it's good to have actually create something online. Although those kind of channels are the least rewarded. Like really, what YouTube really wants is basically to be reminded of things like, "Oh, talk about this movie," or "Talk about this calculator," right? Or talk about Smurfs. It's kind of where creativity goes to die, to be quite honest. And it's more. But hey, you know what? If I can get some money from that stupid ad about you're not a dish, you're a man, I mean, I'll take it. So.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so you started on YouTube, and then what? Revision 3 found you and said, "Hey, we want to pay you to do this."
No, it was Newark, Element 14's advertising agency, which at the time was Silver Fox. They contacted me saying they had a client, Element 14, that wanted to do a web show.
Mm-hmm.
And then they put the deal together with Revision 3 for distribution.
Oh,
So
okay.
Revision 3 was just a distribution partner. But they charged a ton of money, like a ridiculous amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we went our own way and just did it on YouTube. I mean, they were getting paid like 4 times what I was for distribution.
Mm-hmm.
It was insane.
Well, and at the time, Revision 3 was one of the only kind of YouTube networks, right? Because they were unique in that, weren't they?
Well, yeah, Revision 3, I think they were an offshoot from Tech TV after that closed.
Mm.
And they were distributing content. Well, obviously YouTube has been around since like 2004, but Revision 3 had like their own servers, their own player and whatnot, dating back well before 2010. But it got to the point where YouTube became so ubiquitous that you were better off just being on YouTube than trying to have your own player or your own server.
Sure.
And then I think then Revision 3 became completely, I think they're gone now, right? Well, Discovery bought them, right? So they left cable TV, then got bought by cable TV. Well, you know how it is. Like the
How
main
the
goal for
tides
the
have turned.
company is to sell your company,
Yeah.
and cash out and ride off in the sunset while it's gutted.
That's really funny to see that as well, to see Revision 3 break off from cable, do the internet thing, get rebought by cable, because we're seeing this cyclical thing again. We were talking before the show about content and where you're getting your content networks, where now I have Netflix, luckily I have several family members that have other things, but Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, Amazon, HBO, right? 5 services that are $15 a piece, and we're getting to the cost of cable, so we're kind of coming back to it.
The goal is to get that money back. That is the goal of the companies.
Yeah.
Well, we touched on this briefly, but people are like, "Ooh, I'm going to cut the cable. I'm going to show Comcast." Well, that's not the best example because Comcast owns NBC. I'm going to show Charter. It's like Charter's still getting their money, right? They're paying you for the cable. Like the people that really get hurt when the cable gets cut, and I don't care if they lose money, but you know what I'm saying. I'm not trying to sound like I'm empathetic for them, but is like Disney. It's Turner Networks. It's all these channels because these companies are paid hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars a year for their content to be on cable, and when cable people cut the cord, Charter or whoever is still selling to the internet, but it's Disney and Comcast and CNN that's actually losing the money. So they're desperately trying to basically all the streaming services. It's like all these companies are trying to build lifeboats to get off the sinking ship, SS network television. And Netflix and Amazon have already built lifeboats, but they charge a fee to get on board. So NBC's like, we're going to build the Peacock lifeboat, right? And no one's going to care. And I think what's going to happen in probably not that long, I would say maybe 2 years tops, is a lot of these wannabe streamers are just going to fold right back into Netflix and Amazon.
Well, and you saw that with Hulu a little bit too. I can't remember who it was, Fox, ABC, the couple networks that they came out there.
Yeah. But now Disney is taking it over.
Right. And now they're splitting back out again.
The real big thing that has changed is the way that people watch things, though. Because, even with YouTube, my wife and I talk a lot about how our kids have no concept of this idea. We just go turn on the TV. There's a request to watch a particular show, and they might want to watch a few episodes or whatever. But there's not just the turn it on and just start watching in the middle of a movie.
Yeah, and just leave it on.
And then whatever comes on after that, you just end up watching some other random thing. So the streaming model is good, but at the same time, and again, it's all the business model stuff. I get the businesses pursuing a business model where you have recurring revenue, but I'm kind of curious to know, when you have a whole generation of people who aren't used to just turn on the TV and just start watching, it's I'm looking for a specific show, and they're still kind of modeling the cable model, which is buy this subscription and we'll throw all this stuff at you that you don't want, but really what you were looking for was this one show that you were interested in.
Yeah, it is kind of the same because as we were talking earlier, I very rarely watch Netflix, but I pay for it every month. I think the last things I watched was Castlevania season, whatever the latest season was, and Lost in Space season 2. And so I have not watched anything on Netflix probably since April.
Yeah.
Do you guys miss that discovery? Because I certainly do. I was thinking about that with my kids. I feel what was it on Saturdays? After we got our chores done, we could watch something on TV, and you're just at the mercy of whatever the heck's on, right? And sometimes it was Xena Warrior Princess, but other times it's there's nothing else on. We're gonna watch this movie, The Firm or some kind of 90s legal drama just because it's on, and there's some enjoyment in that. But we don't. It's kind of like entertainment roulette, right? I feel we don't have that. I wonder if there's opportunity there for somebody to create a service where it's okay, link your services and click go, and we'll put something on for you, which could just be fun.
There was I can't remember what the app was called, but Ryan and I were just talking about the the Google TV box the other day. I so wanted that thing to be the answer, because it was designed to be this like all-in-one. Everything works. It's just seamless. You don't have to teach, family members and in-laws that you have to switch from input 1 to input 2 to get to the,
Mm-hmm.
it was there. And there was an app on that I had found that was doing this idea, Ryan, that you mentioned, where you could just go to the app, and when you turned it on, there was something playing, and it was like a curated list, and you could switch between channels based on playing video after video from the streaming services, but doing it in the same way because of that idea of like just discovering things as they pop on. It's kind of interesting.
Well, I think to that point, we were talking about like the selection, and I've seen many of article that talks about how like there's so much stuff on these streaming services that you end up watching nothing.
Yeah. Yep.
And if something was like just arbitrarily delivered to you, you might be more likely to watch it because the decision is made for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's weird. Like this other millennial friend of mine, who's actually, well, he's younger than you guys, but still one of those darn millennials. He suggested the same sort of thing, actually, and we thought he was crazy, but maybe he's not.
Is that a millennial friend who we know?
I don't think you know him.
Oh, okay.
Well, Ryan and I, like one of the things we do just kind of to humor ourselves when we're like on out of town work trips is we'll just turn on like the crappiest reality TV we can find and just like switch around there. So it is kind of to just be like, what the heck is this random,
Oh yeah, I love me some crappy reality TV. Like I just discovered that all of Shipping Wars is now on YouTube on the A&E channel. So I'm like, yes, I can watch this garbage
in the background. Hopefully, mostly in the background there. We'll watch Discovery, some HGTV, but it's mostly like what crazy thing is on Discovery. Like I think we discovered Naked and Afraid while we were traveling, and we're like, this is the most ridiculous thing ever. And then there's like Ice Road Truckers, and then there's what are some of the other ones, but just discovering that together has been fun. And would I search that out and be like, I need a truck show about the North and crazy stories where the ice is a problem? Like that's a very niche kind of
oh yeah, Ice Road
style.
Truckers is cool.
But
well, see,
just random discovery is great.
You see Netflix like doing that. I think they're finding that automatically thing is useful. So now, if your Netflix app is updated or whatever, like when you turn it on, usually something starts playing, like in that upper bar, like whatever they're trying to advertise to you, and then when you
right.
down different categories, you sit on an icon, it'll start playing that too. And I think they're realizing that you need to like hook people into the content by like playing a few seconds of it, and then you're like, oh, this looks interesting, and then you click play.
Yeah, it's that old pre-episode stinger or post-episode, stinger.
Hot switching.
Yeah, the hot switch.
They used to have it where Netflix would start the recommendation after something had already finished playing, and people were like, "Oh, they're using that to push stuff." So it's like, did people actually want to watch this Adam Sandler movie, or did it automatically play this other movie?
Yeah. I mean, it's probably a little bit of both, but yeah. So, what are you doing
they
with?
Don't do that anymore. Now, there's no autoplay after a Netflix episode, but then because I've been watching a lot of Star Trek Next Gen on Amazon Prime, but that has like a super aggressive autoplay. It's like 3 seconds and boom, the next episode starts.
I have an Amazon Fire. I have a bone to pick. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I have an Amazon Fire stick, and we've been watching some Teen Wolf, apparently high schoolers. But when you go back to watch the show, it doesn't give you watch next episode. It gives you watch again. And the same thing happened when we were using Amazon to watch the new Star Trek show. Not Picard, but The one right
Discovery?
before that, Discovery, yeah. And it would say watch again. And I would, more often than not, 80% of the time, click watch again. Because I'm expecting it to say watch next episode. So I don't know if our stuff is screwed up or if that's how I can't imagine that's how it's set up for everyone. Because this sucks. Like every day we go to watch something.
Well, Amazon and Hulu definitely have worse interfaces than like Netflix. Well, Hulu is much worse than Amazon. So yeah, I don't know. It could be better, but I'm sure it's all designed to increase metrics more so than your pleasure.
Yeah, get out of here.
Yeah.
There's a tie-in I could bring us back around to. So like
Nice.
the whole trying to tie it into with Amazon. They're care about advertising dollars, but they also have a lot of product that they're trying to move. So there's probably some strategy there, and I think that's the show that's like or any program that's tied tightly to a company. We try to do it, and like that's kind of the game of marketing, but really like people want to connect with other people. So like either a composite cast of several different truckers who are all running the trucking route through northern Canada to Alaska, or an individual personality on YouTube, like you, Ben, or any of like people with their own YouTube channels. People are like willing to look past the production quality and things like that because what they're connecting with is personality, even on those bigger shows, on the Ice Road Trucker Show. And when you start trying to like really insert a lot of product, we're averse to that to some extent. It starts to slow down the show, the creativity, the connection.
Well, yeah, and that's I'm super proud of the quality that we were able to bring to the show because we were able to help produce the show for 3 years, and then Max produced it until you were out of the business, out of that specific form of the business. I'm super happy in the quality, but the thing that was always most interesting is just you being you and you doing what you find interesting was always what made that unique. And so I always like to joke with you, Ben. You quit YouTube to work on YouTube. You quit YouTube to make YouTube videos, but you point out rightly, like, but on my schedule, like in a way,
only when I feel like it.
Only when you feel like it. And that's kind of my title for this episode is YouTube's fame and finding joy. And like, you've been successful on YouTube and got the deal with the big company to produce the show, and you did that for many years. And I feel like we did create some really awesome stuff. And Max, who we got a shout out as well, great, just amazing creative, who still is producing shows with Element 14.
Yep.
He's done amazing work with it as well. But for you, how long, how many years were you producing that show in that format before you were just like, all right, this is enough. I need to be able to do it on my own time.
Well, I wasn't a producer, but
yeah, creating.
Well, yeah, it was what, 8 years, I think. And part of it was I was gonna work on another pinball machine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though that's still been delayed, so that part didn't like really pan out for me. Because the original schedule was like the show was going to end around the same time my new machine was ready, right? So that part didn't go to plan, unfortunately. But still, I mean, yeah, it was just having to like, it was kind of creatively exhausting, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Having to come up with something like every week, and it, because it was like, oh, you have to build something, and then it has to be done on Thursday so Max can edit it, and it was just we did 52 episodes a year, and then they would release even like if there's a holiday, so we would just double up. We'd film 2 in a week, do a simpler one,
Mm-hmm.
so we could take like Christmas off. And yes, after a certain amount of time, it was kind of grueling. But it was a good run. They always treated us well. It just was a lot of work, and very stressful. That's the thing people don't realize is like, if you do something like that, if you're like, oh, you're on TV or YouTube or you're a CEO, like a lot of it is you're getting paid to stress yourself out and like shoot your blood pressure into the sky. And it's not all easy, even if it looks easy.
Yeah. Well, and what do people see? People see the end product. They don't see getting there. And so like, you don't get something done, you're working late at night or you're prepping for it weeks or months in advance, and people don't really see that. And I remember that was something that we tried to do with the last few seasons, was to transition and be like, hey, there's so much going on. Let's show that. And instead of one build every week, let's be more realistic and give a couple weeks or longer than that and have longer projects, because you don't want to just do something new every week. You want to lean in and make something interesting that you could do for longer, or at least that might take longer because of other aspects to it.
Yeah, I think in retrospect, though, it probably would have been better just to shoot it like a normal show, like Mythbusters. But, we were never ahead enough in schedule to do that. That was the unfortunate thing. We could have taken like 6 months off and done it, but that was never an option from a corporate level.
Well, and to that, do you think it would have worked to be able to do, Mythbusters? How many episodes is that? Is that 24? Is that like a network run, or?
Yeah, but they shoot them all in a block, and then
right.
They have an army of editors go in. Of course, we didn't have an army of editors.
Yeah, you have 3 to 6 months or something.
We did pretty well with what we had.
I think the other challenge that you run into is like, anytime you turn a hobby into a job, now there can be a lot of joy found in that. Like I often think about like, I'm doing something that I love, like I'm working in the field that I'm passionate about, but just being passionate about what you do and a hobby are not the same thing. So
well, then the problem is you need a new hobby.
Right. So like a hobby is what you do when you're not working, and you just kind of don't you don't hold yourself to timelines and things like, you're just like, I'm going to kind of play around with this a little bit and see if I can get it going. And that's kind of feels to me like the definition of a hobby. And once you start putting like deadlines on it and like having to have a deliverable, now it's a job, but now it's a thing. And you can enjoy it. You can enjoy your job, but it's different. And like you said, you need a different hobby. Like my hobby these days, I do still enjoy filmmaking outside of work, but my hobbies tend to be things like gardening and staining wood, and
Oh yeah, well those are good hobbies because you can like improve things around your home.
Yeah, they're different. I'm looking for something different.
Yeah,
I'm into calculators and lathes this summer.
Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit earlier. You've been finding some good classic calculators at Goodwill
and other sources like eBay. I have some of them here. Do you want to see them?
Yeah. Like and why calculators? What's so interesting?
Well, I was at a Goodwill because I used to love going to Goodwills and pawn shops like many years ago, like 25 years ago. And I just, didn't do it anymore, right? I mean, sometimes I would donate things, to Goodwill. But anyway, I was hanging out with this friend, and I'm like, "Hey, let's go Goodwill hunting." And it's I'm not going to tell you guys which. Well, maybe I will tell you guys, even though you're kind of close to it. I'm like, so I found this at Goodwill on Verona Road. A TI-86, so this would have been like from 1996 or 97. I think it was like $4, right?
Oh my gosh!
I know, it's like even cheaper than eBay, and it works. Here, I can. I think. Let me see if I think I have a game on it. So we can go to. Let's see.
Well, and what was that when they, were first coming out? 100 and 150
probably
bucks.
Like 125.
Yeah.
Put a Mario game on there.
Yes.
Like the data port, and what I found was you can just you get the they actually had a USB cable, so I bought this USB cable, and then it works best in Linux, so I was using Linux to program it. Certainly I found that, and then I just got on this kick, and then the same day at the best Goodwill, which is the one near you guys. Don't take all my stuff, okay? You know the one by Pawn America and Boulevard Lanes?
Yeah. Yep, that's right over here. Is it really?
Yes.
We'll have to remember that for props.
I found this one. I think I'm going to give this one to my niece because I don't like it because it's too modern. But this one was like $6.
That tan cover, that white cover, kind of makes it feel more like the 70s than the 90s.
Yeah.
But this is like modern though.
Is it really?
You can still buy this in stores. Yeah, yeah. Actually, yeah. The cover for it is someplace. I guess. Hold on.
And
oh wait, there it is.
I was gonna say, will you get a little peek into the kingdom there, your workshop?
Oh, my secret lab.
Yeah, your lair.
There we go. So I think I'm going to give that to my niece because I just don't like it. It's too clean looking.
So fancy. Remember when we used to have separate devices that did calculations instead of just freaking supercomputers?
Well, I think they still make you do that because if you use a cell phone, you could cheat on your SATs.
Yeah, I mean any of those you could cheat as well. Just load all that stuff up. But
so then I found this. This is one of the very first graphing calculators. It's a Casio FX 7000.
Look at that. Yeah. And what's the faceplate made of? Like that semi-metallic or something?
It's steel.
Yeah.
Well, let me hold on.
Now that's classic. What is that? 80s?
No, it's aluminum. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, because the thing I like about this one, someone on Twitter was talking about this one because here, let me show you this other thing. I had this. It's also it's right there. I had this. I got this for my 13th birthday. It's a Tandy PC7 pocket computer.
Ooh, nice.
Still works. Yeah, it's really beat up though. So what I liked about this thing is so what Radio Shack did was they took Casio or Sharp products and just rebadged them as Radio Shack or Tandy.
Oh yeah.
So you can tell these are clearly the same product design.
Uh-huh.
But this is a Casio, and this is just a Casio that's been rebadged as Tandy or
Radio Shack. I'm not familiar.
What's a Radio Shack?
A shack of radios?
This is like the oldest one, but it's the thinnest.
I tried to go to a Radio Shack the other day, and they didn't have anything.
There are a few left.
I know. I went and I was like asking for a few things. They had like nothing. It was like basically they're just a cell phone store.
Well, isn't it just like a liquidation? Because I saw maybe a Twitter post from you, Ben, of just like 4, I don't know, upright shelves with just like a third of its space being used by random products.
That's where I went a couple weeks ago. That was actually the Radio Shack in my hometown. So basically, it's Radio Shack dealers, and they're just selling what's left.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got a couple more to show you. Sorry. So then I bought this one off eBay. This is one of the later ones. This is the TI-89. This has the same CPU as the Sega Genesis.
That's fancy as heck.
Yeah, and it can basically solve equations for you. So I think this one isn't actually allowed on the SAT.
Sorry, is that the 89 you said?
Yeah, TI-89.
Yeah.
And then just yesterday, was it yesterday or 2 days ago?
So real quick, we were able to put, I think I had an 85, and we had Super Mario, Tetris, lots of things like that. You showed us Mario. Maybe it wasn't Super Mario, but there's a Mario game. What can you?
83, and I could do that.
What do you have? What can you put on the 89 if that's a Sega chip? Obviously, the screen is not the same resolution, but I feel like you got to be able to play Sonic or something on there.
Well, it can update the screen faster, so it can do faster fake graphics. Let me. Oh, here I'm going to the games folder.
Guys, this is what we used to do. Like for me, it was high school for fun.
There's a pretty good Tetris on this one.
Here, let me switch over to your camera.
And the screen's actually a lot less blurry on the 89 than it is on like the previous models.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
look at that contrast.
Yeah, so they actually have to fake the grayscale. So to make the grayscale, because it's only the pixels are only either on or off. So to make the grayscale, they actually flicker the screen incredibly fast. So having that much faster CPU basically allows them to fake graphic effects better.
That's great. So they're doing graphics on the CPU as opposed to the display.
Yes, it's all raster based.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to make like, so a pixel's either on or off. So if you want to make gray, you would have a black pixel on 3 out of 3 times, and a gray pixel's only on 2 out of 3 times, and then a light colored pixel will be on 1 out of 3 times. So basically, you're creating a persistence of vision trick to make our human eyes think it's a grayscale. But if you're some super advanced robot from the future that could see like 1,000 frames per second,
you'll notice, yeah.
You would see like it would just look like flickering garbage. I got one more. So I was over at Trek Bicycle on Easttown, which Flick's Brewhouse is still closed, right?
Yeah, I think I signed something to send a letter to Congress to help support our movie theaters, but yeah, I believe they're still closed.
So anyway, I was over at Trek Bicycle buying something for a project. I went back to Goodwill, and then they had a TI-82. This is like, I think one of the first ones, the first like from the 90s.
Yeah, you're like a Pokemon trainer. You got to catch them all. I don't know what all of them would be, but
so this is the kind they would have had when I was in high school.
Nice.
82. It does work. It has less resolution.
Yeah, I can't see anything on the screen.
So then someone on Twitter said, "Hey, I've got a TI-85. I'll send you for postage." And I'm like, sold. And then I guess that just means I need the TI-83. And so then I'll have.
Was there no 87 or 88?
No, there wasn't. It was like 82, 83, 85, 86, 89. And now the new ones that they still make kids buy at exorbitant prices is the TI-83 Plus and TI-84 Plus. The latter of which has color. Woo!
So useful.
Yeah. I don't know. They're cheap. I mean, this was the most expensive one, and it was $20, right? And like this was
that's
$3.
amazing.
So it's like cheap and small thing to collect.
I wonder, like, what? So you've collected them. But you're a modder, you're a hacker, in that opening stuff up and making it do different things. Can we come up with something on this show that you do on your show, your hobby? What can we do with one of these calculators? What would be?
Well,
super
I mean, they
unique?
have most of them. Well, not these have Z80 processors, which is the same processor as like the Sega Master System, the Game Boy, bunch of classic
I remember
systems.
the Z80 being discussed on the show a lot.
Yep, that's what's in here. Well, it's a custom Z80.
Okay.
There's people that like do sound mods. Like you can instead of using this as the data cable, you can actually bit bang audio through it. Yeah, so there's people that have like synth programs.
Or like turn it into a MIDI controller.
Yeah, I guess you probably could do that if the baud rate was high enough.
So what could you do? Could you use that as like your portable Sega Genesis? Just add a HDMI port onto there and off to the races.
I think it would need a little bit more circuitry. Actually, it's a lot more advanced than Sega Genesis because it has way more RAM and memory than a Sega Genesis.
And which one is that? The 86 or 89?
The 89.
Okay.
Yeah. So the 89, originally it was called the TI-92, and it looked more like a pocket computer with like a QWERTY keyboard. But that was considered ineligible for SAT because it looked like a computer.
I think those were outlawed in physics class too. In my
okay.
All they did was they put it into this shape. That's the only difference.
That's hilarious. Okay, here's my pitch. We take the calculator and we turn it into a Sega Genesis, the 89. I'll find another one so that you don't have to tear apart yours. We take the 89, we turn it into a Sega Genesis. That screen is a little menu that can load your legal ROMs. And then you just plug in a controller and you plug in the HDMI.
I would have to take this apart. It might not have a standard 68,000 CPU. It's possible.
I'll buy you parts.
I wanted to do a video and take this one's definitely heavier than the other ones, by the way. I would need to take this apart because I haven't yet and just get the lay of the land, but it's not the worst idea. Because you remember that Game Brain project, Ryan?
I love the Game Brain. That. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I still think about that sometimes. Like in theory, that could work. Because, yeah, there's so many systems that use that same chip. And not just that same chip, that video chip. Because the Sega Master System, it had backwards compatibility to the Sega SG-1000. The Sega SG-1000, which was like, we never saw it here. It was a Japanese console. But that had the same video graphics chip as the ColecoVision. Which means you could use the Sega Master System video chip to run ColecoVision games. It had that compatibility mode. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things you could do.
And, just with a little Google Foo, there's a emulator to get Sega Genesis, a GB. I don't know if that's Game Boy. I don't know. I feel like this could be a really fun project, at least for me. maybe not for you.
Well, it could be cool. I'm kind of backed up. I just told a guy I will finally accept his Sharp X68000 for repair. So, which is kind of like this obscure Japanese computer that's really cool. So it'll probably be a few months away at least.
I mean, I've got nothing but time. No deadline. I got to find a TI-89 for you to tear apart first.
Well, just go on eBay. I mean, you might even be able to find one for like $15.
Ooh, what a steal.
Yeah, I've got these like boxes in my garage that Amanda's always trying to make me get rid of. I'm like, that stuff is vintage right now. I can't get rid of that.
Yeah.
Do you have any calculators, John?
I have a TI-83.
Oh, really? Would you be willing to part with it?
Maybe. I mean, there's a part of my heart.
I know, there was a sigh there. There was like a nostalgic sigh.
Well, in that case, you shouldn't part with it then. Totally understandable.
My wife's probably like, yes, take it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
some guy on Twitter sending me a TI-85, so the 83 will be the last link.
It's got a some high score, Tetris scores on there that have been saved for.
Are you sure that would only work if the battery was still good?
2 decades.
Oh, I don't think the battery would last that long.
I fired it up the other day. Meaning like 6 months ago or something, because I was like going through that box, and the games were still in there. I don't remember. She said you could only have it if I include all the random chords in the 2 tubs of randomness.
No, you need those chords. You know.
Yeah.
That's the RAM backup battery right there.
Okay.
Because these things didn't have flash memory. It didn't really exist yet. So just like the Zelda cartridge, they used the battery.
Gotcha.
But the little batteries, like the one I just pointed out, those don't really last that long. Versus like the big cells, like the CR2032s. Those can last like multiple decades.
Really?
Yeah, like so like the Game Boy cartridges that had batteries and
if your device is off, obviously.
Well, the RAM is still running. Like if Nintendo assembles a Legend of Zelda cartridge in 1987, the battery is running the RAM. So the RAM has been running for 34 years.
I have Zelda original Nintendo here somewhere. So I mean, I feel like I fired it up several years ago, and they're still saved games. So they're saved games because of that, because that battery still has power.
Is that computer gaining intelligence over these 30 years, just sitting there biding its time, becoming more and more angry?
Somebody did the math, and they're like, well, if you look at the CR2032 in a Zelda cartridge, for instance, and you look at how much the voltage has dropped. So basically, like they start at like 3.3 volts, or 3 volts, I'm sorry. They start at 3 volts. And then after like 30 years, the voltage might have dropped to like 2.7. And then the point at which the RAM will fail is about 1.8, I believe. So basically, this person calculated that Zelda cartridges will hold their memory until about 2060.
Oh my gosh.
I know,
that's amazing. I have to go get my Zelda cartridge just for illustration purposes. So John, go ahead and ask more questions. I'll be right back.
See, the Game Boy cartridges, they had less space, so they had smaller batteries, even smaller than this one.
Yeah.
They're more like hearing aid batteries. Those batteries, since they have less mass, they don't last nearly as long.
Yeah.
So pretty much all Game Boy cartridges with batteries from like the 90s, they're all dead. So they need battery replacements.
So explain to me why those batteries in the Zelda cartridges work that long. Is it just a very different kind of technology?
No, it's the same kind of battery. There's just way more mass to it. So it just lasts longer.
Okay.
That's the only difference.
So it's like a lot heavier or bigger than those?
Yeah, it's bigger, so it has more mass, which means it has more milliamp hour capacity.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
But think about it, there's a ton of space inside a Nintendo cartridge and not much. So you're talking about like a little tiny coin cell, like not even the size of the head of the screw, versus like, a CR30. Well, yeah. Of course I have some. I mean, you recognize this. Like, this is the kind of it's a 2032. This is what's inside of video game consoles.
Yeah.
And it's usually the thicker one, too, because there's two thicknesses. There's a 32 and a 1/6.
Yeah.
So the numbers on these, if it's 2032, that means it's 20 millimeters in diameter and 3.2 millimeters in thickness. So, yeah. So anyway, there's it's not that big of a battery, but for what it needs to do in a Nintendo cartridge, it's got plenty of juice.
Yeah.
Because I thought about that, too, because I had, NBA Live 96, and, with custom players in it. And that cartridge is 24 years old, and you boot it up, they're all still there because it's the same thing. It's just basically a battery like that keeping RAM basically on for decades, and same thing. It'll probably last just as long as Zelda.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm. There's a lot of interesting stuff about batteries. This is definitely a tangent thought, but the latest thing I've been reading up on and kind of watching videos on, and I've been thinking about getting my oldest son in on working on a project with me to make a DIY solar generator. Basically, just a battery in a case that accepts solar power and then can give you some plugs and stuff. But it's like the mountain of information to climb feels massive.
In order to research it?
Yeah, just because I don't have that background. I've done some wiring and things like that, but trying to learn about what you do with there's just so much out there now with different kinds of batteries and then how you arrange them and things like that.
Well, there's also more information than ever, too. So
yeah,
it may feel overwhelming, but you're going to be a lot better placed than someone trying to do it back in the 80s.
That's true. That's true. That's an interesting thing. And I've probably heard the story before, but that's kind of something that I wonder if people who are watching would wonder is how did you, because you were doing graphic design.
Right.
How did you get all this stuff? Did you just research it yourself and you were just dedicated?
A lot of it, yeah. Well, back in the 80s when I was a kid, I was really into electronics as a hobby. So back then we had Radio Shack, we had the Forrest Mims books. We had those 80-in-1 electronic kits,
Yeah.
So there was definitely things. We had Erector sets and Capsella.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't really have the internet, so you kind of experience that stuff in a vacuum. And then, as I mentioned earlier, when I did that Atari project and I made a website, I was just shocked at how many people thought it was cool. And I think that's what happens is you go on the internet and you realize, there are other people like me, and it's very liberating because, it's in the past, it's I live in this small town or whatever, and I fix cars or whatever, and you're only ever going to be able to fix cars for people in that town or people whose cars break down in that town. But with internet, even if you have something kind of niche, making single-handed controllers, once you expand to the entire world, you you find enough people that makes it worthwhile, you know?
Yeah. And you just dove into all you just like did the research and stuff on your own and gained it. Just that's the part that is kind of fascinating. Like, you humbly don't call it genius, but I mean,
that's because it is
information that you've been able to amass just by reading things yourself is pretty amazing.
Well, but also along the ways, you know, I would build things, I would make a lot of mistakes, I would blow up stuff. So it's not like there weren't, you know, trials and tribulations. Like Thomas Edison said, he's like, I didn't invent how to make a light bulb. I discovered 1,000 ways to not make a light bulb.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to be said for just experimentation. And as Jerry Ellsworth always would say, is like, failure is a very good teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't teach the value of failure enough to like young people.
Well, that was an interesting thing with the show too. Like, when things wouldn't pan out, you're like, do we end the show saying, we don't have a product because we couldn't figure it out, you know, because it was based on like succeed, you know?
Yeah, that was very stressful.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I ran around the office. I've moved offices, so I couldn't find my Zelda cartridge. I do have, you know, this cartridge right here. We've got Turtles in Time, Manhattan Project. Oh no, that's Super Nintendo. Luke was pulling in the Super Nintendo game. So I've got that, which probably has some saved games on there. This might actually, now that I think about it, it might be.
I think that one had a battery, actually.
Well, and I was going to say, this might actually be codes to get to the next level, you know, which is probably the way that they got around it. When you beat a certain level, you get a code.
But that's like an arcade style game, so I bet they don't even have a stage select code. I mean, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
and then
Simon's
golf.
Quest.
Which I can't believe there's any save games on here or any memory, but this is like a non-Nintendo branded cartridge. Yeah, I got it somewhere. I was so proud because I have it, and I think I have the golden cartridge as well.
Of Zelda?
Of Zelda, yeah. It was a super big deal.
I at the show a couple years ago.
What's that?
I don't know why. I picked up a golden Zelda cartridge a couple years ago to show. I don't know why. I'm never going to play it. I just wanted it.
I mean, it's nostalgic, like you said, the nostalgia cycle is like 25 years or whatever. Like,
yeah, 20
you know,
to 25.
I guess that's like the 80s.
Well, yeah, I played the hell out of Zelda back when I was like 12 or whatever. So back in the day, yeah. So I guess that's it, maybe.
Yeah, and especially if you can get it for, you know, nothing crazy, not paying $1 million for a Zelda cartridge.
Those Nintendo games, I think it's starting to cool off, but Nintendo was like pretty expensive for a while. Like, I think I probably paid like $20 or $25 for Zelda.
At the time, though, weren't let's see, Nintendo games? I don't think Super Nintendo was that way, but Nintendo, adjusted for inflation, would have been more expensive than current gen.
Oh, definitely. That's why I always laugh when people complain about microtransactions.
Yeah.
It's like, it's all these like, you know, Zoomers on. Like, I was a kid in the 80s. I was like mowing lawns and doing chores in the 80s to buy video games.
Mm-hmm.
Video games were probably like around 1989 is when they went to $50, right? I mean, there were some cheap games that were like less, but like everything in the Sega Genesis was $50. There's more than one Super Nintendo game that was like $70 back in like 92, which is insane.
Well,
like Street Fighter 2 was like $70 in 1992 on Super Nintendo.
I feel like too, as kids, we had a couple games, you know, and we just played the heck out of them. You know, Nintendo, Super Nintendo. We didn't have many, and we only got them for Christmas. We didn't get them any other time. Maybe a birthday in Super Nintendo era, we would get games. But now, like, I have a bin. Like, Amanda wants to get rid of your cord bin. I have a bin of games from like Xbox 360. Like, I have 360 games and PlayStation 3 games that I bought maybe for $10 a pop when they go on sale that are still in the original plastic. You know, Demon Souls, yeah. You know, other games, and it's just so different. Like, it's like that saturation, which as a young kid, you're like, oh, I would love to play anything but this one game that I have to play. But now as an adult, I'm like, I have Ultimate Game Pass. I upgraded for $1 for 3 years, and there's hundreds of games on there, and I'm like, I'll just play one of these old games that I have.
Yeah, I had that happen too. Like, what was it like? I got like Doom Eternal for free, and I'm like, oh, I like the previous one, but I couldn't get into Doom Eternal, so I'll probably never finish it.
Yeah. Whereas we had to scrap for everything that we had before,
Yeah, but then back in those days, like oh, I've got this crappy Nintendo game and it sucks, but it's all I have, so I'm gonna play it, right? Like I think I was playing an emulated version of like Super Pitfall on the Nintendo, and it's a terrible game, but I remember renting it in the 80s and thinking, wow, this is kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, any of those games, renting was always fun because you could try a game where, again, if I only got one game a year, you'd have an opportunity to play a few more games with rental. But
oh yeah, I used to rent Nintendo cartridges all the time. Oh yeah. And then there's some games that I would rent like many, many times, and I'd eventually just buy. Like I think Shadow of the Ninja was like that. Like I just kept rent on the Nintendo.
Oh.
I kept renting it. I think I rented it like 3 times, and I kept beating it, and then I just bought it because I'm like, well, by the time I bought it, I could get it at Funko Land for like.
Oh my gosh, Funko Land! My heart goes out to Funko Land. Like,
I actually worked at one in the 90s. It was a great job.
Oh my gosh, so good.
Like vintage Funkoland price sheets online?
No, I've never. You should send them. I would love to see that.
So there was one of our shop neighbors, Mr. Hansen. I remember he was always like buddy with Felix, but he comes over one day and he's like, hey, I found this Nintendo on an estate sale, right? And so he's got this box, and then we're looking at it, and there was actually like a really valuable game in there. Romance of the no, not Romance. It was Chinese Bandits. No, wait.
I've not heard of any of these.
Bandits of Ancient China or something. It's one of those like strategy games by Koei. And I'm like, dude, like this is like $120 game on eBay. You should like sell it. But anyway, at the bottom of this box was like this moth-eaten, worn-out. Remember the Funkoland flyers with the price list?
Yeah.
It was one of those. It was all yellowed and moth-eaten. And I started looking through it. So this is all the prices like in 1996, back when Nintendo was junk. Everyone was like, when Gen Xers say Nintendo, we mean the 8-bit Nintendo Entertainment System, by the way.
NES, yeah.
Yeah, so it was like little Samsung was like $7. Oops. And Flintstones Dinosaur Peak was like $3. There's all these games that are worth like hundreds, if not thousands of dollars now, and Funkland was giving them away. It was funny to look at.
Yeah, I missed that. The middle school and high school was in Kenosha, so we had a Funkoland in Racine, I think. Was there one in Madison, or where did you grow up here?
Yeah, there was one. Oh shoot, hold on a second. Oh, that's gonna barely fit. I put on this, but the analog sticks were bigger on the 360, physically bigger.
This that you're talking about is at the bottom of the left handhold there.
Yeah, so there's that's the analog stick,
and
so for single-handed use, I have to mount it down here. So I'm gonna have to like adapt it somehow, but I'll make it work. Yo, you know what I could probably do? I bet I could. It's the same voltage or same. It's the same resistance. I bet I could use a modern,
like an Xbox One,
Xbox 360 stick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just do that.
That's.
Oh, anyway, so you're talking. Yeah, there was
amazing.
where was it?
Funkoland.
Oh, it's where GameStop used to be or is on Mineral Point Road. That's what I always went to.
Oh. That was Funkoland? Yeah.
Used to be.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Funkoland. I think Funkoland came out of Minneapolis or Minnesota.
Okay. I wanted to work there so bad as a kid.
They had this really good deal. Like, so when I worked there, I think it was, I don't know if it's minimum wage or just above, but how they pushed they pushed Game Pro, was it Game Pro? Some magazine. They pushed their subscriptions, almost said prescriptions, and then the game cleaning kits, right? But when I was there, which was the mid '90s, people were still buying Nintendo cartridges. It was still pretty popular, and so all I had to do was say, "Does your Nintendo blink?" Yes, you should buy this cartridge. And the thing that's cool is every time we sold either one of those, we got $2.50 added onto our check. So like in the holidays, it was very easy to like make like $12 or $13 an hour just by selling that extra stuff. So you
Oh
actually
wow,
were self-incentivized. Like if you sold that stuff, you made cash money.
that's
Wow.
nice. Yeah,
So like $12 an hour back in like '95 was good money.
yeah, and I feel like I owned all of those as well. You know, the cleaners that you
Mm-hmm.
kind of come in here. People couldn't see it before because I didn't switch the right camera. But this is the games you were talking about. That this is an arcade game added to Nintendo, and this is I feel like I never got past maybe the first course. I don't know. Like I could never figure it out. It's like Top Gun. Like I could never refuel.
Land the plane.
I could land occasionally, but I could never refuel. So like after the second level, I couldn't pass because I could never refuel. It was most
I don't think
never.
I don't think they had gameplay testers back then. Like
No.
if you look at something like Battletoads, it's like no one can get past level 3. Like
Oh my gosh.
nobody tested
I've
this.
beat Battletoads.
You did?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So like the jumpy, the skidoo, what is it? Water ski level or whatever? Like I feel like that was
Yeah.
the hardest one. There's a
Really?
there's a new Battletoads game that's in Ultimate Game Pass for Xbox, which I was kind of excited about because me and my siblings played it as a kid.
I think I found a donor.
Nice.
So I need 2 of them.
So those
So-
are smaller.
I'm curious to know, you're talking about playing these vintage games on Game Pass. I wonder, because I've thought about, like, is there any value? We got this stuff laying around the house, and I think, like, is there any value in these old electronics at all? Like, you've got things now that can do way more than this item that was designed to do one thing. But I wonder, if that's where the nostalgia or the the value, the allure of these old gaming things is, because I've fired up some like old games on like a computer or a phone or something,
Mm-hmm.
and my thought is always, this sucks. This game is so old and dumb.
Yeah, where
But-
are my polygons? Where did they go?
But when you're playing it on something that's really old, I think there's almost a wonder that this old thing can run this. You're just like,
I've seen it. I've seen people postulate that, especially like millennials. They've grown up, or maybe even like Zoomers. They've grown up in like such a like, I don't want to say artificial world, but they kind of. Well, for one thing, like they're really curious about the '80s, right? It's like this it's like this novelty to them. And so they're like, how did things work? Ooh, look, it's a cassette tape deck, or it's this or that. And like, but then if you think about it, like if you look at like entertainment, like back in the like 50s and stuff, like when everyone started to get like into suburbs and stuff, what was a really popular genre with media? It was Westerns, right? So as people like got indoor plumbing and they got radar ranges and stoves, they were fascinated by how people lived, like, I guess, well, at that point, like 75 to 80 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's always a fascination with, how things were done in the past and like, how we got by. It's like, oh, you're looking at like medieval times or like, LARPing. Yeah, I just think there's a fascination to that, and also kind of like with the ice road truckers. I know you mentioned. I'm gonna segue back to ice road truckers.
Nice.
There's also a bit of, I don't want to. It's not necessarily shot on Friday. It's more like like voyeurism's not also. It's maybe voyeurism, like kind of like a sadistic voyeurism. Like you look at ice road truckers and you're like, thank God I do not have to do that for a living.
Mhm.
You got part of it, or like, oh God, look at all this crap these cops have to deal with in like Atlanta or something. And it's like, so you watch those shows and it's like a cathartic release that makes you feel better about your own life because you don't have those crappy jobs.
Well, part of it certainly like waking up from a bad dream, like, oh my goodness, that is not reality. you know, like somebody didn't come in and burn my house down, or whatever it is. You wake up and you feel this relief. Yeah, and this fulfillment of something that, I don't know how you pronounce it, but the Schadenfreude or Schadenfreude.
It's Schadenfreude.
Schadenfreude.
Yeah, there's an extra syllable at the end for the E for some reason.
There's no umlauts.
Well, Schadenfreude is like this guy passes you on the highway doing like 90, and then 2 miles later he's been pulled over.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, that's
yeah.
Or even like, well, oh, you know what? You guys brought up Naked and Afraid earlier, and I know we're getting low on time here, but I do have like a weird conspiracy story with that.
I would love.
I know
John and I would love to hear a weird conspiracy theory.
I'm ready.
All right, so I think it was like Memorial Weekend, right? So I went back home and I was gonna like pick up my niece and bring her back here for a couple of days to hang out with me. And so I was at my mom's, and my mom watches that show religiously for some reason. I don't know why. So it was playing while we were there, and then I went with my buddy to the bar because this is right when bars had reopened. And it was playing at the bar too, right? And we were like discussing it with the bartender. We're like, "What the hell is this?" Because we don't have cable TV. But anyway, this was like on a Saturday. So then the next day is Sunday. I've got my niece and we're hanging out here, and my Google phone gives me a like one of the push reminders, like news stories. It's like new episode of Naked and Afraid on tonight on A&E Networks or whatever. And I'm like, was my phone hearing the audio? Like, because I have never Googled, I'm aware of the show, but I'd never Googled it, searched it, nothing. But I spent like 2 hours at my mom's, an hour at the bar with it playing in the background.
Yeah, we're with you. We're with you on this because
Alexa totally spies on you too.
Like a year ago, somebody, in Vox or Wired or somebody did an article, explored this thing, and we did an experiment over a weekend at my house where we talked about traveling to Europe and things like that. And on Monday, so it was like a weekend thing. I wasn't really looking at my phone, but I had it by me. On Monday, I started getting like Delta ads or other airline ads for traveling. And I certainly, I picked something that like we haven't been traveling. We haven't been talking about traveling. We haven't looked up travel. I'm going to, pick something very specific, and that happened. And I'm sold. Like our devices are definitely marketing to us regardless of whether we want them to or not.
Or if they're
I've been curious. I've been curious about, because there's that video that went around about someone giving a talk at a conference, and they were coming from the angle of saying that, your device is not listening to you. It doesn't need to listen to you. That the truth is more strange than that. It's just that, everyone has sort of a digital avatar that's been assigned and is able to sort of predictively,
right. It's because of your actions that you have been on there.
But that would be weird to be like, could it be that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some that also sounds like some sort of psyop where they say that so you don't think it's spying on you.
Yeah.
Because one example I distinctly remember is we had, one of the I have one down here in the basement because it's very handy, but we had one of the things at the shop, the NSA Pringles cannons, I like to call it. And this was when we were, wrapping up the show, and Max was building this desk, right? And he wanted my help, like building a desk, and then he was going to laminate it with resin. So we spent like a good amount of time one day talking about like resin coatings and clear coats. And anyway, then I start getting, for whatever reason, I've seen a lot of correlation between the Echo device and YouTube. I know they're different companies, but of course companies sell their data to each other. And so anyway, the day after Max and I have this discussion, I start getting YouTube recommended videos for clear coat countertops, like doing stuff with countertops. And maybe it's because I'd recently bought a house, but we were talking about that same damn thing. And there's other times too, like the Naked and Afraid. There's something else. Like there's been a couple examples.
I mean, this is the kind of conversation I could go on for days and days, and especially with you, Ben. Like, I'm curious to know, like, sometimes I think about like what's the end game with all of this? I mean, like, you're like immersed in electronics and working on things like that. I at times feel myself sort of like maybe there's a cycle with this too. You mentioned the nostalgia cycle, but maybe there's a cycle with this where I'm like, I feel myself getting tired of this stuff. I'm like, I'm wanting a return to just real life, where I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want more like digital connectivity and all this stuff. Like, that sounded really fun and cool, and I thought it would be awesome to have my lights turn on when I walk in and this happen or whatever. And now I'm feeling this pull the other direction of just like, okay, I don't want to be connected, when I go home in the evening and stuff.
Yeah, well, I think also like with the COVID and lockdown and like all these Zoom calls, like so much more of our interactions have been pushed online that I think people are getting kind of sick of it. I was thinking, what was it? I know we got to wrap up, and I actually have to bounce. I have to go someplace at 2, but I think where was it? Oh yeah, I was at this bar a few weeks ago, or about a month ago, and I started talking to this dude, and he like makes fake teeth, which I was really interested in because I'm actually getting my implants finished next week, and yeah, and like he's like, I would never have that conversation online. I would never go on Google and try to research how teeth are made by CNC machines, but yeah, a lot of times it's like these very analog organic conversations you have with people instead of engaging through social media. You learn like Pocahontas, like you learn things you never knew. Right?
Hashtag
yeah, so
Disney Plus.
Yeah, so I think there's something to it where like I found during the lockdown I found myself wanting to. I usually never even. I really like to avoid my family, but even then I'm like, I should hang out with my family more. So it's like the more they drive people apart, ultimately humans are social creatures. And if we abstract all that away with digital, it kind of makes us lose who we are. And I think deep down our instincts and our DNA, like you could say marriage came from us huddling together in caves for warmth. Probably that is where it came from. Mm-hmm. Well, or, whatever your religious beliefs are. But yeah, I mean, so I just think there's like a social aspect that you can never fully expunge from humans. And maybe we've gone so far. I mean, we're going to go further with technology. But as you say, John, we've gotten to the point where the technology has kind of betrayed our basic instincts, your favorite movie, and it starts to feel wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we're talking about like things listening to us, and it's like, I think about it from a marketing perspective, like we work in marketing, and I'm like, what's our responsibility here?
Well, I mean, really, like, with social media,
changing people's thoughts and perceptions about things.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to go down a rabbit hole of that, I mean, you think about like during this pandemic, like the majority of the conversation has been shifted online because there's no schools, there's no churches, people are off work, we've closed the bars, we've closed, the main way to communicate is online where things can be controlled.
Yeah.
Or watched.
That's all the further I'm going to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. Oh, man. We're going to have to go to this COVID party and talk about
a COVID party. Like Max's accidental COVID party.
with no Alexa. Check your phones at the door.
I've noticed that like at bars, like if you're at the bar and if someone says something, if they're talking about like the lockdown, and if it's something like anything like, anti-lockdown, they're like they go into a whisper, It's like see. Well, anyway, like I said, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Although, as you can tell, I've clearly thought about that rabbit hole.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are wrapping up. I'd love to. If you have 10 more minutes, I would love to do our 2 truths and a lie to get to know you a little bit better.
Okay.
John, I'm going to throw you under the bus and let you go first because I have not thought about this. I was trying to relate it to Ben Heck related two truths and a lie for myself. But
Is this like spin the bottle?
yeah, we're all gonna have to kiss at the end. So I hope you
That's
get
not very
ready.
COVID safe.
Yeah. So you tell two truths and one lie in any order that you choose, and the other two of us get to guess which one is a truth and which one is a lie. And it's just a fun way to learn some more things about others, specifically
Two
you.
truths and one lie. So obviously, my goal is to try to trick you.
Your goal is to trick us. One of John, and I'll just keep vamping so John has a moment to think. One of our tricks, one of John's tricks that he shared with us, because he's very devious. He seems like a really nice guy. He's very devious. One of his tricky methods is to use a story of a friend of yours or family member that has been told, you're comfortable with, and you tell it like it's your own. That's a very good way to tell a lie about yourself.
Oh, because you have all the facts, so it's not hard to like think of things.
Yeah, and doesn't look like you're trying to make it up on the spot.
That's good advice. Thanks. I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, next time you're like, I'm so sorry I'm late. Give somebody else's excuse.
All right, two truths and a lie.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we'll end with you, so you have a little bit of time to think.
Oh, okay.
We'll start with John. Yeah, this is what I experience, not every week, but 2 out of 3 weeks. I don't prepare much for these two truths and a lie.
Okay. I met Barry Alvarez when I was in 8th grade, and he talked to a friend and I about becoming future Badger football players. I have hunted with my father-in-law for about 10 years in a row, and I have only ever shot or seen one buck in all those years. Shoot, what was my other one?
Dang it! What was my other truth?
This
is totally not a lie. What's my truth?
I was just trying. You're like trying to think of stories that I don't think you've heard or whatever. I've never purchased a Nintendo or a gaming system.
All right,
Those are my.
Let's transition back to everyone. I'll let you guess first, Ben. You can guess which one is the lie.
Well, I'm guessing the one about Barry Alvarez is the truth.
Because it's so detailed?
And it seems plausible. I mean, it's not that hard to meet Barry Alvarez. Then I'm going to guess that the one about hunting is the lie.
All right, that's your guess.
Which makes the Nintendo one also true.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm impressed if you've met Barry Alvarez. I knew you were a middle school quarterback. I was like a third string middle school quarterback. So I don't even know why we had a third string.
It was for your ego and nothing else.
Yeah. John was way more legit than I was, though. In that, Barry Alvarez. I'm pretty sure you have a Nintendo Switch. So you said you've never bought a Nintendo system. So I'm gonna call.
He never said he bought it. So he might have been bought for it.
That's true. We it could be a technicality. So I feel like the hunting thing is true that we've talked about. You have gotten one deer in the last few years, but I feel like before that you haven't gotten any.
But he said
deer.
a buck.
I know. Well, with your license, you get a buck, and then you got to get doe, specific doe tags for specific areas.
It's usually a lot easier to get doe tags.
I've only hunted 1 year. Different regions is hard. So I feel like that's true. I feel like the Nintendo is the lie because, again, I know you have a Switch, and I feel like you asked me about that. So unless that's a technicality and Amanda bought it, That would be a good move. That Nintendo. That's my guess.
All right, good work, Ryan. You got it. I've only ever seen the one buck. A lot of years I didn't see anything. It was pretty depressing, but then started getting some signs of life and started having some more fun and success hunting, but only ever saw and got the one year. When I was I don't remember whether I was in 7th or 8th grade, I went to a Badger football camp over the summer, and a friend and I had to run back for something, and he and I were like running down the tunnel, and Barry Alvarez was in there, and he stopped us, and we had a little conversation with him for a little while. It didn't amount to anything in my football career, but it was still kind of like, hey, cool, I met him and got to talk to him. And I thought I might catch you off guard, Ryan, because I never owned any gaming system. We never had one in our family. I thought maybe with the stories or whatever it would have thrown you off, but I didn't relay that, how we'd always just go to a friend's house. Like one of my friends had a couple systems, and we did most multiplayer games there. I didn't have stuff at home, and then never bought one. Even as an adult, we got an Xbox mod given to us by Amanda's brother that we used as a media center and gaming.
Yeah, what was that software system?
XBMC.
XBMC.
And then we got a Wii given to us for Christmas with a bunch of games. And it was only this last year, so only about 6 months of my life, I bought a Switch for the family.
You're a proud owner of a video game system. That's amazing. Nice. All right. We'll save the best for last, so I'll go next. Ben, you'll be last.
Mine's not going to be very good. I already thought of it.
No,
it's simple.
It's great. You remember 2 truths and a lie, so you're telling us 3 stories that people may or may not know. Okay. So, number 1, I also met Barry Alvarez, but in college, because I lived right on the corner of Randall and Randall by the Capitol, or not by the Capitol, by the stadium. And on one game, I don't know what year I lived there, my junior year, about 3 hours before the game, Barry Alvarez was outside walking around. So we ran up to him and met him, which is kind of fun. Number 2.
Is he a nice guy?
I mean, in as much as you're like, oh my gosh, you're Barry Alvarez.
Okay.
Win today. You know, like.
Oh, I wanted to lose.
Also, after having drank a lot in college. Number 2, I've been in Nintendo Magazine before.
What magazine?
Nintendo Magazine.
You mean Nintendo Power?
Nintendo Power, yeah. Sorry, I have it here somewhere. 2005, maybe 2004. I was in Nintendo Power. And let's see, I should have thought of a third one. I've never been out of let's see. I've never been out of North America. I've never been out of North America. I've been to Canada, but I've never been out of North America. And we'll let you go first, Ben, because John knows me better. He knows my lies.
I'm going to say the lie is that you've never been out of North America. So that's my vote.
Man, that one's suspect, but because of your inclination to steal things that other people do.
Specifically you?
Uh-oh.
I feel like the Barry Barry Alvarez one would be a really good lie because it'd be feasible or it'd be a reasonable. You know, you live down there nearby and he's around. I'm gonna say that one. I can't remember. I mean, I know Carolyn travels a lot. I know you've traveled some, but it's actually trickier to arrange getting out of North America than some people realize. You can travel a lot and still have not been to Europe or Asia or whatever. So I'm calling Barry Alvarez.
All right. And let's see, Ben, yours was North America?
Yeah.
So I'll say that I have not been out of North America. I've been, in the Caribbean. I would still kind of consider that, I don't know. That's not South America. I would consider that within. I've never been to Europe. I've never been to Asia.
North America, definitely, because it's above the equator.
Yeah.
There we go. I've never been to Europe or Asia. I hope to go to Europe this year, but that didn't work out.
Wow.
And what's the other one? We have been in Nintendo Power. That's impressive that you guys were just like, yeah, you've been in Nintendo Power.
We know.
I guess you might know from Redefined, our Nintendo medley was in Nintendo Power. It might have been 2004, actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
So what were you in it for?
We had this Nintendo medley that this song that we performed in our a cappella group. And there was it wasn't an article. It was like a small comment from one of the editors about like here's very cool things that are happening around the world. So it was like on a page with like 9 other things. But it was
still in it.
Oh my gosh, it was so super cool, and I still have that. I still have that magazine. So that's legit. I did not meet Barry Alvarez. I did live right by the stadium. I gotta make sure that when you tell a truth, it's similar to mine, so that I can get you on one of those. Because that was totally my goal, is to try to trick you.
You gotta do it on separate occasions.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, but wouldn't that be awesome if my truth was the same? Like, that'd be great.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I was kind of going either way, but then I felt like I knew enough about you that I could pin down the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and your thing about North America was kind of a good trick because the truth was a negative.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, I haven't
Exactly.
been outside the country. Yeah. So.
Right.
So it kind of tripped me up.
Good old English. Yeah. All right, here we go, Ben. You're up.
Mine's going to be really simple. I'm sorry, but I got a dash here pretty soon. I'm just going to make it involve food. One time I ate, what was that critter called? I ate a bear. And another time I ate a cute little squirrel. And another time I ate a fierce, mean alligator. That's it.
You're really gaming the system here. So you've eaten 2 very interesting things. A bear.
Well, definitely not the third.
An alligator.
I'm calling the bear.
Bear.
From the question of what that critter was called.
That's true.
Obscure, but it's like all of those things are things that people eat.
There was hemming and hawing.
You both saying the bear?
No. Hang on. What was the second one? A squirrel or
a squirrel, a bear, and an alligator.
You called it a cute little
and
squirrel. It could have been a really ugly squirrel.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with squirrel because I've had alligator. I know people who've had bear. I don't know anyone who's eaten a squirrel.
Oh, well, the lie was alligator.
Oh.
I have eaten bear and squirrel.
They
both taste like chicken. Well, no, bear tasted like venison.
Bear also apparently smells terrible.
Yeah.
Animal.
I had a cousin that brought home some ground bear meat, He was living with us for a summer, and I got home. The house smelled horrible, and then he took it to work the next day. He was working at Batteries Plus, and he made it. He like reheated it in the microwave for lunch, and in the afternoon, his manager told him he was never allowed to bring that again. Because the whole store smelled like, yeah.
So that was like The Office, where Dwight would be like cooking geese in the office and stuff,
Yeah.
kind of.
So hilarious.
What's the squirrel? When did you eat a squirrel?
Oh, I don't know. We used to like hunt squirrels, me and my uncles, and you eat them.
You just grill it up?
I think we fried it in a pan.
For those of you at
yeah,
home,
like I've eaten like rabbit before and
Yeah,
turtle and all
nice.
sorts of.
I've heard a lot of people have had like it in stew, like squirrel or rabbit and stew, but never just fried up. Just
that's the best way.
That takes a lot of work. Yeah, they both taste like chicken. Like, everything tastes like chicken.
Yeah, or chicken tastes like everything. All right. Well, that's our show for the week. Ben, thank you so much for coming and just hanging out. This is a blast to catch up, and
yeah, no problem.
thank you for helping fix our light that we broke a week or two ago. What do you have anything to plug? Anything you want to share? Obviously, your YouTube channel. You're putting out really fun content.
Well, if you want to. So I'm still making videos. It's on YouTube. It's called Ben Heck Hacks. Ben Heck is a hack. You might want to type that, but that's not the channel name. Yeah, we actually like for a long time they just sat there with like 13,000 or subscribers. Like back from the 10 years ago, but yeah, I started putting new videos on there like I don't know, like a year ago in November, and yeah, now we're up over like 120,000. I noticed once you get past 100,000, it goes up much faster. Probably something with the algorithm.
Nice. Yeah, so Ben Heck is not a hack. Look that up on YouTube. Ben Heck is not a hack. If you're saying this, you're probably going to get some ads for that. So good luck with that. Yeah, thanks for coming on. Give me one recommendation, something that's been entertaining you. Could be a hobby, could be television. Just give me one recommendation.
One recommendation.
What's been fun for you lately?
I've been working through all of Star Trek: The Next Generation. So that's good. It's fun, like when you see things that became memes, like Picard doing this. It's kind of like fun. It's kind of fun to spot the memes in that show.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, John, what do you got for me? Anything to share?
Well,
recommendation.
I briefly mentioned this to Ben, but I've been obsessing over DIY solar generators and solar setups, trying to decide whether I should tackle trying to mess around with doing it for my house or whether I should just keep it to a smaller, in a case about this size and do that. But it might be something fun to do with my son, as long as I can not electrocute us.
Well, I would say start with something small and then work your way up. So you understand the concepts from a small scale. Yeah. And then you can apply them on a larger one safely.
Yeah.
And then it hurts less when you shock yourself.
But remember, you've only electrocuted yourself if you die. Otherwise, you've just been very severely shocked.
Great.
Semantics.
I like that. Good old English. Yeah, so I talked about it earlier. Teen Wolf, that's fun. My kids love zombies from Disney. Zombies and Zombies 2. It's just super playful. And I was like, Teen Wolf is our zombies. Our kids just like that weird school post-apocalyptic monster thing. It's going to be popular forever. Also, really cool handshakes. I'm developing them with my oldest 4 kids. I have 6 kids. The oldest 4 kids. And they're so into the handshakes, and I'm loving it. Super random. But check that out. All right, that's our show this week. Next week, we're hanging out with Chad Melis. It's Chad Melis and Rob Perro. We've been working with several organizations on human trafficking awareness. So it's super heavy stuff, but we have to joke around in order to survive working on that type of work. So we talk about the behind the scenes and things that we've learned. So tune in then. And again, Ben, thanks so much for hanging out. It was good to see you last time I saw you, and it's good to digitally see you. Let's smoke some cigars or something. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. We'll talk soon.
Cool. Sounds good. Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.